So one question that you might ask yourself is, how many music libraries should you work with? One, two, five, 10? In reality, there's no answer for that question, honestly, because it depends on you as the individual. It depends on how much time that you have to make music. It depends on what your overall obligations are just throughout your day, your life, your month, week, year, whatever that looks like for you as a person. For me, I still work a 9 to 5, and I can honestly only dedicate, I'd say, roughly 5 to 6 hours per day on music production, which is a lot. It's more than a lot of other people have to dedicate to their music. So for me, is all strategy. Everything is based on strategy. So I work with non-exclusive libraries and exclusive libraries. So there's a combination of the two. So for me, the non-exclusive libraries that I work with, I make sure that in their contracts that I'm able to use same songs within those libraries. So I dedicate time every single week, every single day to make non-exclusive tracks, if you will. And if you watched my video last week where I talked about the difference between a non-exclusive library and an exclusive library, and then I go through the pros and cons of each, you'll start to understand what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen that, check up here. The card's up here somewhere. Take a look at that after the video and learn yourself something about the difference between an exclusive library and a non-exclusive library. There are definitely pros and cons to each. Back to my scenario. So for me, I like to do both, because again, at the end of the day, for an exclusive library, that's where your bigger payouts are going to be. For the non-exclusive libraries, you can still see residual income, because again, it opens up your music to a smaller subset of people. And when I say smaller, I'll say, what I mean is, I guess, a smaller creator. So these are your YouTube creators, these are your TikTok creators, these are your anybody who's making content, anybody that's making advertisements on their own or whatever that might look like, podcast background music or whatever. So for me, there is no cookie cutter answer here, folks. You're going to want to look at your individual situation and then identify and be realistic with yourself if you're able to pump out the amount of music that's going to be needed. So last example that I would give, if you're going to be working with if you're working with 10 exclusive libraries, that's a lot of music that you're going to have to crank out on a rather regular basis. Say, for instance, each of those libraries wants you to create an album, let's say roughly 5 to 10 tracks per a piece. Even if we go on the smaller side and say five tracks for 10 different libraries, you're looking at 50 exclusive tracks that you're going to have to create. Most people have a timeline, I'd say, roughly between a month and a half to get a full project completely done, completely created, mixed and mastered, and then ready to go. So if you're not able to pump out 50 exclusive tracks within that time frame, you might reconsider your scenario. You might consider like what you're going to do. Again, for me, I have roughly 5 to 6 hours every single day that I can dedicate to not only researching a music library, not only researching the type of music that I'm trying to make for a library, but to then actually jump into my DAW and then start to compose something that fits. And then we're not even talking about mixing and mastering, because all of that is included in my 5 to 6 hour time per day. Not to mention making content, but that's a whole different bucket of time that I try to set aside or dedicate to YouTube. So again, in short, the answer, it's not cookie cutter. You're going to have to make that determination yourself. If it was me first starting out, I would start off with maybe one non-exclusive library and one exclusive library. That'd be it. I would just start off with those two libraries, and I would see, because you're going to have to see which libraries actually work for you. If you're not landing any placements with those two libraries, then you're going to have to switch libraries. And so think about that. If you're working with 10 libraries, whether they're exclusive or non-exclusive or a combination of the two, if you're not landing any placements with any of those libraries, you're going to have to research another library while still continuing to pump out music for other libraries to see if it's going to work for you. Remember, folks, this is a long game. You're not going to get placements right off the bat. You're not going to land a bunch of you're not, even if you do get placements off the bat, they're not going to pay out immediately. So again, this is a long game. So you want to put out your fillers here. You want to make sure that you do your due diligence up front and understand that the libraries are making placements and landing placements in the area or genres that you make music best in. That's going to be the most important part here. Here's my last little note here. For me, I spend the majority of my time researching the library before I even submit anything to it. Because again, I have a very finite amount of time that I have to dedicate to music production in general. I still have kids. I still have a wife. I still have a family and a household to uphold. So for me, I don't have time to waste. So I have to make sure that the people that I'm submitting my music to off front, that they're able to do something with it and that they're landing placements in the areas or categories that I make music best in. If you found this video helpful, like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment down below. Because again, I want to hear from you all. I'm starting to see more interaction and more communication about sync licensing and more questions around it. If you did miss the last episode of my Music Theory podcast, here it is right here. It's going to walk you through the difference between a non-exclusive library and an exclusive library. And then again, it'll outline the pros and cons for each. And we'll see what the next episode holds. All right, y'all. Peace.